I answer a lot of questions posed for atheists, but so many of those questions are either just the same old thing repackaged, or are posed in a very insulting way. So when something comes along that's pretty original, I make sure I jump on it, just as I did with these questions from YouTuber Alpha4IV. Now, there's a lot of extraneous matter here, so I'm going to cut to the heart of the matter. If you want to see the whole video, the link, as always, is in the description. So let's get started.
Here we go. So first off, and I'm going to be reading from a script because I want to make sure all these questions are correct. Also, if you look at my video feed, you'll notice I'm a Catholic and I'm also a religious person.
I'm sorry. Maybe you should do something about that.
So, there's that. Okay. So first off, let me say that I love atheists.
That's not remotely possible, given your status as a Catholic. Because as a Catholic, or indeed as any kind of Christian, you have to believe that atheists are going to hell. So you might tolerate atheists, you might appreciate the existence of atheists, so that you might try to lead them to salvation, but I just don't buy that you love atheists simply because they are atheists. But anyway, let's continue.
And I don't just mean that hyperbolically. Some of my best relationships, those with the least amount of drama, have been with atheists. And some of my closest, longest lasting, and dearest friendships have been with people who self-identify as atheists.
And that's cool. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude here, I really am not. But this is something that I hear all the time from the religious. People who will say that they have lots of atheist friends or their best friends are atheists. And trust me, I'm not trying to say you're not. I'm not trying to say you're being dishonest. But I wonder if that's because they're good people or because they're atheists. Are they your best friends because they have things in common with you, or is it because they're atheists? That's the part that never gets answered. And again, getting back to the whole going to hell bit, if a Christian isn't concerned with that, then maybe they're not a very good Christian in the first place. Just something to think about.
I'm just putting that up front before you guys think this is like some kind of anti-atheism thing. I have no hate for you as a group or as a philosophical system. These are going to be honest questions that I really have about atheism, so please answer them. And I would like you to please answer the questions that I'm asking, not the questions you think I'm asking. That's very important.
I'm going to answer the question that makes sense to answer. Now, I haven't got any idea at this point what he's going to ask, but I've been doing this for a very, very, very long time, and I know from personal experience that a lot of these quote-unquote questions for atheists are based on misunderstandings of what atheism is, what atheists think, or in this case, that would be what I personally think, and how the world works. So I'm going to answer taking all of that into account. And I'm really honestly sorry if you don't like that.
I have no agenda and have no axe to grind. These are all honest and real questions. So let me ask question number 1. Okay, you ready? Okay. So, do you, as an atheist, have a problem with theists or even fellow atheists lumping agnostics and anti-theists in with you? That's question number 1.
No. The definition of an atheist is someone who believes in no gods. If an agnostic believes in no gods, and virtually all of them don't, then they are, by definition, atheists. And anyone who believes in any gods of any kind, those people are theists, and they should be identified that way. Now, I will say that I am bothered when anyone, the religious or anyone else, tries to imply things about me based on other people who self-identify as atheists. Atheism is the lack of belief in gods, full stop. It says nothing else about me as a person, nothing about my other philosophical, political, or social beliefs, or anything else you can imagine. I don't believe in gods. That's all there is to it.
Okay, question number 2. Now, not talking of Christians here, but do you have a problem with atheists who try to turn atheism into a religion?
I've never seen that happen, and to be honest, I don't think you have either, because the dictionary definition of religion is the belief in and worship of a superhuman controlling power, especially a personal god or gods. You can't take that definition and get anywhere remotely close to atheism. You just can't. Now, if you mean taking ostensibly religious trappings and using them in some atheist meeting or whatever, that's not being a religion. It's just having a common thread with some religious ceremonies. That doesn't bother me at all. I mean, I don't do it personally, but I couldn't care less what someone else does, and it doesn't affect me directly or indirectly one bit. I'm an individual, not part of some grand atheist collective.
Do you feel that hurts your argument against religion?
My argument is that the religious haven't proven their case with evidence, logic, or reason. Whether someone out there goes to an atheist church or not says nothing about my argument at all. The only thing that would hurt my argument would be if the religious could come up with any kind of evidence, logic, or reason, but we all know they can't.
Further on that note, my printer in the shot? I dug it. Okay, well, I just gotta stay right there.
Editing. Learn to edit. I shouldn't have to do it for you.
Further on that note, do you consider yourself anti-religious?
Absolutely, because religion hurts people and society as a whole. And you might argue that you're not being hurt, but I would disagree. Your religious beliefs, no matter what they are keeping you from accepting reality as it demonstrably is, not as you wish it was. They are forcing you to buy into things that cannot be evidentially or rationally justified for emotional reasons. And in the larger context, the horrors of religion are blatantly obvious in all of the death and destruction that the religious wreak in the real world. All of the ignorance that is forced upon children through religious indoctrination. All of the votes that people make for religious dogma, and the number of people who prove that they can't think for themselves because they have so much religious nonsense stuffed into their brains. Religion harms us all. That's just a fact.
As there are religions that don't believe in any kind of God.
There are philosophies that don't believe in gods, but as the definition I gave earlier shows, religion virtually requires some kind of belief in something supernatural.
Or that have an agnostic approach to divinity.
I don't think that's even possible, so you'd have to give me an example. Because to be completely agnostic toward divinity, you'd have to have no idea whatsoever whether anything divine exists or not, at which point, how can you belong to a religion that posits that something divine is real? The idea that I don't know that a God is real, but I believe in a God, is pretty stupid when you think about it, because nobody knows anything about gods. Knowledge requires some demonstrable basis in objective fact, and nobody has any of that. Anyone who says they know that a God exists is simply wrong. They know no such thing.
Question number 4. When a spiritualist or a supernaturalist claim to be an atheist, does this bother you?
No, but you've already kind of asked this one. So long as they don't believe in any gods, they are atheists by definition. What else they do with their lives has no bearing on me. It has no impact on my atheism.
Do you see the same logical inconsistencies that non-atheists see in this stance, in their point of view?
Of course I do. Being an atheist doesn't make you automatically rational in everything you do in your life. I spend a lot of time pointing out the really stupid, irrational things that self-identified atheists do. Most atheists are liberals, and when it comes to far-left progressivism, stupidity is pretty universal. Then again, my atheism isn't my core position. It's my rationalism. I'm a realist. I accept what is demonstrably so, and I reject what is not. Therefore, my atheism arises from my rationalism, not the other way around.
Question number 5. Why do so many of the YouTube atheists argue against an idea of God that is childish and nothing like what anyone with a mature faith actually believes?
Well, I can't speak for anyone else, of course, but in my case, I directly respond to what other video makers are saying in their own videos, just like I'm doing with you. Of course, you can say that those people are stupid or immature or whatever you want, but you can't pretend that we're making it up, because clearly we're not. But this is a question that I've addressed before. The idea that we're only going after the low-hanging fruit. Okay. Where is the high-hanging fruit that we're missing? Because I address everyone who makes an argument, and the arguments are uniformly bad. Everyone from William Lane Craig to the Pope has been addressed, and none of them stand up to any rational scrutiny. And I keep asking theists who we're missing, and they've got no answers. Just because a particular apologist or religious figure personally appeals to you, that doesn't mean that their arguments can stand up to dispassionate rational evaluation.
I feel like, this is my personal opinion here, I feel like it is because when you quit believing, or when you realize you didn't believe, it was while you were still a child, or while you were spiritually or theologically naive.
That's an empty claim to make. People leave religion at all states in their so-called spiritual journey. Even religious scholars and preachers figure out that religion is bunk. Take a look at the Clergy Project for evidence of that. So are they naive too? That seems to be a completely unsupportable and absurd position to take.
Even Hitchens and Dawkins are guilty of this. And it was the reason I personally had to stop listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson, whom I enjoyed hearing speak on science and astronomy, until he started getting over-rhetorical against a straw man.
Except it isn't a straw man. If you personally want to have a debate on religion using your own theological ideas, are you going to call that a straw man too? It's only a straw man if we make things up out of whole cloth and pretend that's what you believe so that we can defeat these fake ideas. Taking your own words and proving them to be laughably wrong, that's not what a straw man is.
It makes someone sound foolish and bigoted when they attack beliefs that no one actually holds.
Except they do hold them. They themselves say so. It's not our fault if their beliefs are bigoted or stupid. Maybe they should just stop believing such ridiculous things.
And that even informed or well-read believers would argue against.
I can only debate the people willing to debate. I can only make video responses to people who are willing to make videos. If there's someone else you'd like me to address, by all means, point them out, because I don't think there's a single theist on this planet whose beliefs can stand up to critical scrutiny.
A great example of someone who does argue for atheism correctly, in my opinion, again, is Bart Ehrman, who argues about stuff Christians actually believe, and not just propagandistic nonsense that just amounts to theist bashing.
Bart Ehrman is a Christian scholar that addresses Christianity from a scholarly standpoint. But he's certainly not alone. You can take historians like Richard Carrier, biologists like Dawkins, philosophers like Dennett, scientists like Peter Singer and Lawrence Krauss, etc. But religious beliefs are kind of fiddly things. The vast majority of self-identified theists, yourself included I'd wager, do not believe for scholarly reasons. In fact, they have no idea what most apologetics even mean. That doesn't mean they aren't just as dangerous or even more dangerous than the ivory tower theists. You're really just completely overstating your case.
Again, I say, this is not an attack video.
Yet you keep attacking atheists like they're doing things they're simply not doing. Go figure.
I have been watching YouTube for over 9 years, and During those 9 years, I have been subscribed to different skeptic and atheist channels for long stretches of time. From Armor Skeptic and Shoe on Head to Undoomed, who's awesome, honestly, to Thunderfoot and Sargon, until both of them had their like dramatic whatevers. Then I unsubscribed from them very quickly. Even Godless Cranium I was subscribed to for a while. And Hugo and Jake are just fun to listen to. Hearing them read the Bible, I mean, come on. Or hearing them talk about the Quran, who doesn't enjoy that? Even if they don't know what they're talking about. It's fun to listen to.
And you notice people like Undoomed and Sargon, they really don't talk about religion much, do they? They comment on social issues almost exclusively. Just because they may be atheists, that doesn't mean that they talk about it a lot.
Okay. I have heard all your best arguments.
And it's really too bad you haven't paid any attention to them, isn't it?
And as someone who has studied philosophy in college, as in I have a degree in it, I have read all your best arguments from all your best thinkers.
Reading does not denote understanding, because the biggest argument that any atheist can have is pointing out to the religious that they have no evidence to support their claims. Yet, you're still a Catholic. Imagine that.
You all have just never convinced me about anything.
And that sounds very familiar. You, and I mean all theists that I've interacted with over several decades, all of the religious books I've read by supposedly top minds in religion, they haven't convinced me either. And frankly, they haven't even tried. Because religion stands or falls, as far as I'm concerned, on the existence of objectively verifiable evidence that gods of any kind exist. And there simply is none.
In fact, reading Nietzsche helped confirm my faith. I was, while reading the Bible, I actually had some difficulty with Paul. Paul was really bothering me. Not the stuff in Maccabees and all that stuff with the... all the stuff, the war stuff that you guys usually like to like quote out of context, that never bothered me. What bothered me was the Pauline stuff. And reading Nietzsche helped me deal with that and helped confirm my faith.
That's what happens when you have an emotional commitment to something that you can't prove really happened.
You've never been able to convince me when it comes to atheism about anything.
Because you're clearly not open to it. Rational people don't believe things for which there is no evidence. You do. Therefore, you're not operating on rationality, but on emotion.
Mostly because what you argue against are the things that religious people, who are intelligent and well-informed, just don't believe.
Now, from here, he goes into kind of a religious rant, repeating things he's already said and engaging in a lot of emotional blather. So I'm just going to stop responding at this point because it isn't particularly useful to continue to do so. The religious, by and large, operate this way because they simply cannot imagine that their imaginary friends aren't real, and anyone who suggests that they don't must be wrong, full stop. But that really is no surprise, is it? We see it all the time from people who are emotionally, not intellectually, attached to their beliefs. So in that, Ramon here isn't significantly different from his apologetic brethren. And I'm sure he's fine with that. But honestly, using just this video as a guide, I have to suggest that Ramon learn how to script and edit his videos. I had to cut a significant number of gaffes and silences out of the video to even be able to respond to it. And that's not an insult. It's a helpful suggestion from one content creator to another. I'm really only here to help, after all, whether people take my advice or not. If Ramon has any questions or wants any help, I absolutely offer to help him in any way I can. He can certainly contact me, and I'll do my best to make suggestions. But anyhow, that's all I've got this time. Thanks for sticking around, and remember, stay rational. Care if what you believe is actually true. As we unfortunately see time and time again, so many people just aren't interested in maintaining an intellectual view of reality, and that's where it tends to go all completely wrong.